I have an apparel vertical and I have an home goods vertical, right? So apparel vertical, every tailor earns 8 to 9,000 rupees a month. In handicrafts, in carpet, not possible. Why? Technology. For the last 100 years, people have been working on the sewing machines. That Juki, the way the whole supply chain is neatly divided, split, you know, the pattern maker makes the pattern, they have cutting machines to cut the fabric, tuck. So there's efficiency. So tailor will work 8 hours a day, he'll earn 75,000 rupees. So that is the key. So
since past 2 years I have been doing this cotton sarees and all handloom sarees from West Bengal and selling it to exhibition here. So I have opened a little shop also. So what I am finding it is that the weavers, those who are weaving a saree, they are getting 60 rupees per 6 hours job, and their children are not ready to come into this business.
yes,
That's for clear.
absolutely.
Everybody is in that mood. So my rickshaw puller, who is taking to me that weaver's house, he was also a weaver, but he has stopped that business and he is earning more in that rickshaw. So they are saying that enough is enough.
Yes.
Earlier it used to be generation together, father, son, and it has to pass. So if he is earning 60 rupees, because if somebody I saw in sari with a 500, who will is 500? So how can you say that? You cannot increase their salary because customers are not ready to pay. They think that handlooms are very cheap. But the labor behind that, any unskilled labor gets 200 and 250. Whereas the weavers get only 60 rupees for 6 hours. But this is the reality, this is the factor.
Yeah.
And next generation, I think will have a dirt.
Yeah.
Nobody is ready to come. That's what I have a scenario, because I have traveled village to village and I have found everywhere they are not ready to send their children to this craft. So what do you think is the solution?
Man carrying forward the Dhaka lineage should have shares in the brand. So these are the kind of models that are now reviving, right? So we have shares for producers in the company. So whenever the company makes a profit, they will get a portion of that through brand. So there is money to be made at manufacturing, there is money to be made at brand level, and there is more money to be made at brand level. Wealth creation happens at brand level. The man who owns shares in Nike company versus the man who owns shares in the factory producing shoes for Nike, who's earning more on his investment? The guy with shares in Nike, because Nike is a brand. Yeah? So we're talking about very strong brand creation in the sector. Yeah? So, and if you look at numbers, we could have tomorrow 10,000 crore companies in this sector. You've got a Nike, you've got a Reebok, you've got a Bata, you've got an Adidas. What have you got in India? You've got one Fat India. Mother Earth is trying to get somewhere. That is why Mother Earth is doing this, because we've realized that you need, if you can have 4, 5, 6 global shoe companies, you can have 20 artisanally owned consumer lifestyle companies in this country. So you need scale, yeah, and you need capital, because you need the capital to do all that he's doing, building efficiencies in the supply chain, yeah. And it's also very clear that since the money is to be made in the brand, it has to be a backward integrated model. So you're talking about expecting people to crack the whole deal, to crack it at the brand end, the retail end, the customer end, the producer end, right, down to everything in the middle. So that takes capital. So our key challenge, my key challenge has been balancing the non-profit and the for-profit. I have a non-profit, I have a for-profit. I don't have time to give the non-profit. So I can only give time to the for-profit, but it cannot be solved that way. Look at milk. Look at milk. Look at NDDB. That man got money out of the government. He got money out of lots of sources. Okay, it took him. So he built NDDB, he built Amul. He's cracked branding. So Amul is our best milk brand in the country, right? Look at Babe. So he's got such a strong ecosystem in place. Milk. Just take milk. If you want to do that, and in the artisanal space, you cannot do it as a for-profit. So one of the biggest challenges has been how do we build up the non-profit and the for-profit? Because if you do it just through the for-profit, you are not going to hit scale. No way we can sit here trying to build 100 crore, 1000 crore company, nothing, you'll be dead. So that's been the biggest challenge, how to juggle both these, right? And the next challenge has been working capital, right? That means ecosystem building, right? So we need a non-profit that's constantly doing R&D with all the apparatus, or we need a for-profit. So because I mean, he's in carpets and he's got so much of technology challenges. We are in wood, we are in metal, we are in ceramic. I mean, don't Indians buy crockery? All our crockery is being imported from Thailand and from China. Why? Don't we have enough potters? Every village has got 20 potters. So why don't we have a strong ceramics industry in this country? We've got hand painters, we've got everything, right? So if, where was I on my challenge?
Yeah, the financing part.
The financing, okay. So you got to finance R&D, you got to finance working capital, right? The entire retail industry today functions on 90 days, 120, 150 days credit. Actually, the retail industry functions on consignment. No retailer owns stock today. They own very limited stock. They've just become landlords. So how do you assume that people like us are going to pull this working capital out of somewhere? Yeah, but there's no working capital for producers to give us credit. So how will I run my retail business if my producers don't give me credit? So only the manufacturers who give credit survive. Which is why Mr. Aloysius Fernandez, the guy who was talking about the SSGs, Maharada, is key to us. So we are trying to build places. So the biggest challenge in this sector, A is working capital, and B is R&D. If somebody asks me, these are the two biggest challenges. Third challenge.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Chaudhary to
say what are the three key challenges that he addressed while building up this very complex supply chain.
Whole supply chain, because in carpet industry there are 60 processes. So some raw material or finished product is lying at some processes. So it is very difficult to trade that. So the use of ERP is very, very important to manage an efficient supply chain. Because there are so many, thousands of SKUs and the raw material and the semi-processed goods and finished goods and unfinished goods is lying at the different processes. So I think the use of ERP is very, very important. The second biggest challenge is the mindset of the artisan and mindset of the people working on the supply chain. Because they have developed a habit which they don't want to break. And that brings the inefficiency and that consumes a very long time. So through the training, we have to break their mindset.
Yeah, I found the third challenge, but it's complex, right? Because we are a demand-led model. So for us, the biggest challenge, and we can't do it from our internal resources, it's not possible, is really giving the power to the producers. Yeah, so that is a huge challenge. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question.
If I come to your question, are you talking about bringing manufacturing back to the US?
Well, in part. I mean, we're doing it. I mean, I work in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I have a company in Lowell that we invested in, a Community Development Corporation. We invested in a company. We're 20% owner, and they manufacture the reusable bag, shopping bags.
Yeah.
And basically, how they are competitive. The bags made and imported from China are only $1 each.
Absolutely.
They have to charge $2 for their bags because of labor costs, etc. And the way that they're able to do it is socially, appealing to the socially responsible corporation and local corporation and saying, look, we're making this locally, or they get a U.S. government contract for gloves that have to be made in America, but otherwise they just absolutely can't compete. So they have these.
It will be a slow process to educate your consumer, right? Yeah. But it can be done, and it can be done through branding. Yeah. The other day I was just seeing everybody coming out of the airport on the British Airways flight. I was waiting to pick up my son. But 10 passengers came out with a bag saying, if you buy this bottle of water, somebody in Africa will get a bottle of water. Yeah. So it was really good branding because. So I don't think too many customers in the US would really feel hassle about paying an extra $1. But it all depends on how you brand your bag. Yeah. So branding plays a huge role in this. Yeah? And of course, differentiated product. You have to understand your American consumer and put something into that bag which is not coming in those bags from China. It could be a little chip that plays happy birthday to you or something. But really, yesterday I saw a candle that says happy birthday. So innovation is key. Yeah? It's innovation. It's all about innovation. If you are innovative, you can get what price you want.
Sells all kinds of handled products. Now, I had, in my last visit to Hooghly, had gone around with the Karnataka Handloom Development Corporation officer and visited the mega cluster of handloom development. And any handloom weaver I spoke to had the same story, my children will not do this. I never found one handloom weaver who was below the age of 45-50 years. And they were very categorical, my children will not do this. All the products are picked up by Priyadharshini. I went to a Priyadharshini showroom and bought a beautiful piece of table mat, hand-woven table mat, for just 20 rupees. I asked them, why? Why are you selling it at 20 rupees? This can sell at least at 40 to 45 rupees per piece in the market. And that value could go back to the weaver. I said, no sir, this is a government policy. We can't price it more. So in the process of branding, what are they doing? They are killing the craft itself. So that is one thing that we need to always keep in mind.
Customer education. Shoes. The shoe I am wearing is one of the cheapest I ever bought in my life. I went to Tata Star Bazaar and there was a sale pair of dress shoes. I paid 250 rupees. I'll tell you, it is the most comfortable shoes I'm wearing today. Right? And I have paid another one I bought, 2,000 rupees. It's just looking. It's not that comfortable. So what is needed is that, as she said, the R&D should know, does it suit the customer? What is the quality? Because once you recognize, I don't even know which brand it is, right? What I'm wearing, I can't even go buy it. I don't even know where Tata will sell it again. So what is needed is the quality is maintained, and I think your pricing can go along with that.
Yeah. That is Tata's export surplus.
Okay.
Tata export shoes. Improving these loans. Yeah? But I'm sure there's still scope for them.
But is that on a human-centered design focus?
It's a human-centered design focus. It's a productivity focus. So the aim should be that this guy uses some principles of handloom. Yeah. Why? Okay. Now we go back. Why was the handloom there? See now, in this, which is why I no longer say I'm in handloom or handicraft. Because if you go with the cultural purists, tomorrow we already have a handloom mark. You think that artisan earning 60 rupees is concerned about the handloom mark? So, who defines what is a handloom? You see, a handloom was the way it was 200 years ago because there was no access to better technology. But today you can send a guy to space. Yeah? But you cannot improve the chap's handloom and make it into a semi-power loom. There is this huge debate on why handloom people are going to power loom. I just don't get it. I mean, the guy who loves handloom should love it so much so that the weaver gets 200 rupees a day for it. You go to Desi, you should buy that shirt for 2,000 rupees. Then handloom is fine, as long as you will pay for it. Otherwise, hello, give all these weavers some other loom. But they should earn 200 bucks a day. But if I say this in front of the purists, my neck will get off. Which is why I say I am not in the handicrafts and handloom space. I am in the rural livelihood space. I openly say it.
We have to change their mindset.
How? This is what to say to them. Let me learn that word.
No.
This is the
You are right. Last month, we studied the 12 best practices of the change management. We took them from the University of Harvard. 12 cases, how they change their whole supply chain, how they change the mindset of the people. So now we are, by studying those 12 best case studies, we are planning for our company how to make a process to change the mindset of the people. Because if we can change the mindset of the people, the half battle is won.
Can I answer that? Can I answer that for you? Can I answer that for you? See, there are, because I have nuggets that I can give you. See, there are two things that Jebura's company does. One is, to educate the customers, the end users of the carpets. They have come up with the concept of each rug a story, where every rug, at the back of every rug, there is a story of a person, the person who has actually made this. And that is working wonders with the customers who are ready to pay any price for that. The second initiative that they have taken over the last 2-3 years is that at regular intervals, they have their carpet weavers from different areas coming into the head office of the company and looking at what the company does, getting into the design section, getting into the packing section. So they then closely connect themselves with the larger picture.
No, in their AutoCAD room, where the design is going on.
When I'm buying it, I'm going to think about how good it is and how good I feel when I'm buying it. It's air conditioned, and how good I feel when I'm like purchasing that shoe. So for that Indian guy producing that shoe in some rural village in India, to be able to compete with that level of like advertisement and branding and working capital, whatever else he needs, where is he going to get the money? I mean, isn't like stopping imports the only way they're going to come? I mean, I have like no cue in this afternoon, but about like branding, like stuff, to get to like actually compete with them, don't you think we need to like get the big boys out for a while and let the small guys grow up a bit?
No, it's that you don't stop imports, but look at Fab India. Fab India is one of the most successful retail companies. It's one of India's best brands. So they didn't have to kick out all the other apparel people from the country. They didn't have to shut down.